Welcome to another episode of Built on Web3. Today's episode is a project deep dive where each week Thomas and I chat about a Web3 project that looks interesting. We're both Web3 enthusiasts trying to learn as much as we can about companies being built in Web3. Today we're doing a deep dive on the Web3 project Ocean Protocol. Thomas, happy wedding week.
Happy wedding week. It's a countdown of only a few days.
You're gonna have a wife and you're gonna be a husband.
I know. I can't wait. Just a few more days. So, and you'll have to be given a speech too. So hopefully you've been practicing.
Oh yeah, I've practiced once. I've been told it's good.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Who said it was good? Ava?
Sarah
dog?
gave me the thumbs up.
Oh, Sarah gave you? Okay. Well, in that case, it's good. Yeah.
She said it'll get some laughs for sure.
Cool. That's what we're going for. Some giggles.
All right. So today we're talking about Ocean Protocol. So similarly to like we talked about Lens Protocol, this is a protocol. So it's not like a piece of software that people use necessarily, but it's like the kind of the substrate of tools that developers can access and utilize to solve something. So what is Ocean Protocol? Their mission is to kickstart a Web3 data economy that reaches the world, giving power back to data owners and enabling people to capture value from data to better our world. So the problems I think they're solving is the first is that we just don't inherently feel comfortable sharing data. It's kind of a foreign concept on a personal level of being willing to share data to other companies rather than them just taking it. And the second is we don't know the value of that data or how to accurately price it. And as far as I can tell, this is where Ocean Protocol comes in and what they can do.
Yeah. Let's go to the first point that you said again, because I had some thoughts and then I forgot what they were.
Yeah, so that one was just we don't feel comfortable sharing our data. Like in the current world, it's kind of a foreign concept, and companies are just kind of taking it from us rather than us being able to sell it to them or, giving them permission to use it.
And I think, what you say about like us sharing it, the kind of nuance between us sharing it or us being not comfortable sharing it versus us giving it because a company's taking it is really interesting, because I actually think that we share or companies take way too much of our data. And the easiest way to relate to that is anytime you do anything at like a new vendor or a new thing, and you type in the same information over and over and over again. And I think we covered a little bit about this with data backpacks of how we just kind of give this away. And every single time we give this data away, we're feeding into these companies kind of like data silos that just exist in all these different areas. And to the other point you made about what Ocean Protocol does is like, we don't understand what the power of data is well, because it's just behind these private walls everywhere. And
and I think we don't really,
see it.
I don't think we fully even understand what data we have, because they were even talking about, so what I found interesting is the founder or one of the people involved in creating it, he kept saying that this is our answer to universal basic income. Like they're on it from such a philosophical level that it was shocking to me, where instead of like a government mandating how much money, they can give,
take from the rich, give to the poor,
exactly.
Everybody gets,
Instead
Utopia,
of that, which that's obviously a very like polarizing issue. So that's top down. This is from the bottom up, where like he said, even a couch potato is generating value in the world. Like you're creating biometric data, you're creating health data, and all of that data could be useful to some AI researcher, and you could go and sell it on the Ocean marketplace, which I think is cool. But I don't really understand. Like what data could I sell? But they make it seem like I have enough to sell that I can get universal basic income from it.
And it doesn't sound like it's going to be all your income of what they were saying, but it seems like it's going to be it'll be a sustainable source of income. I think that's the difference between the top down versus bottom up, because this is something that we're actually contributing to, because there's different layers of it. And we could talk about this later, but the whole like you providing the data, someone analyzing the data, and someone using that data to actually solve a problem. The most parallel concept, the most parallel thing that's happening today that I saw similar to Ocean was what Apple was doing with the Apple Watches and the data that was being generated by that, because that too was something that like, hey, we are generating this biometric data. But the thing is that Apple kind of controls it through this like kind of black box and only gives it to some researchers. Maybe I don't really know. This kind of
yeah.
off.
I guess they almost did it, because they have like they have a heart study where, I can download this app and opt into this heart study, and they're just, I'm giving them access to all of my health data that's being generated from my Apple Watch, and I'm contributing to some study. So I guess it would be that, but I'd be getting paid for it instead of Apple just taking it.
You'd be getting paid for it. The researchers could be paying for it and getting paid for it, depending on what algorithms they do, because some pharmaceutical can then be using some of those algorithms or something. And that could just be flown. So there's money flowing in all these different ways in these like fractional pieces that before would have just been you opting into this data and not even seeing it or knowing or anything.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, I guess where would the money come from in that situation? Like if, like, let's say this Apple Watch data heart study situation is using Ocean, where is the money coming from to buy it? And is that prohibit the study from even happening in the first place? In which case I would volunteer the data.
So you can probably volunteer the data, but there's 3 different flavors that Bruce, one of the co-founders, was talking about this way. The first one was the value of the data. And that's the community saying, hey, this is what the value we think, or maybe the publisher of the data, if you own that data, being like, this is what I think it's worth for this community, but there's consensus as to like what this could be. The second one is analytics of that data. So people coming together with ideas of like, hey, this is what we can use it for. This is what the analytic models could be off of that, and then they could sell. And the other is like challenges. So someone can say like, hey, I think that your data can help me solve X problem. This is the bounty, or this is what I'm willing to pay for it. And one of the neat concepts was that this can open up the appropriate context for data, because the same, and Bruce, one of the co-founders, gave this example of the hedge fund manager and the researcher. The hedge fund manager might be able to make $10 million off of some models and so forth. And so this data and this data analytics on top of it might be worth $1 million to him. So that's what he'd be willing to pay for because of that. But then this researcher, they might think that like, hey, I don't have $10 million, but I can pay $100 for it. And they can still kind of do, because this researcher doing this data for this heart study might say this, hedge fund manager might say that.
Yeah, but so I guess with the heart study thing, if they're getting the data for free right now, who would be paying for it in a situation where my data is being collected and sold on Ocean? That's what I can't figure out. Like, would this prohibit from a huge study like that from being done?
It could be, maybe, but you'd still have to opt into it either way. Like you opted in for it for free. For sure. So I guess you could opt in, but they could say like, hey, if this data actually is useful for us to create X type of treatment, you could get a royalty similar to the whole, when we were talking about Royal, remember, was it Royal? Was it something else? With the whole like song, like, hey, from this stream, you get paid like X. Maybe that's the way.
Yeah. Interesting. What were some analogies that you came across? So one that I came across was a simple one where Ocean Protocol is like Airbnb, but instead of houses, it's data sets where you can go and stay in house A, B, or C, but you personally have some little things that you're looking for. You might really want a hot tub, or you might really want this. So within those data sets, you can say like, oh, I really value this thing. And so it's just a marketplace to buy data sets.
I didn't fully grasp some of these concepts, but one of them was like the infinite ways in which data sets could actually be split up. They could like sell data sets by like, hey, the first 10 seconds of this data can be sold here, the second set sold like there, or you give universal rights to it now, but maybe the some data is much more valuable in the immediate sense versus a week later it's worth nothing. For like trading pieces maybe, or
yeah, it's definitely hard to wrap my mind around too, because it's literally almost a new asset class. Like they keep saying data as an asset, right? And so and as normal people, we don't interact with data sets, right? It's the biggest data set we interact with is like the financials of our company. That's it.
Yep.
So it's hard to imagine like
or something like that.
Like, will you and I be going on this marketplace and buying data sets? I don't see how that's going to work. To me, it seems like this is AI researchers that need data for algorithms, and that makes sense to me. That seems like a very easy use case.
The interesting thing could be as like AI evolves, of maybe AI soliciting and being like, hey, for me, the AI to build better analytics, AI being like, hey, this is the type of bounty I need for that.
AI is putting out automatic bounties.
Yeah, that would be kind of wild. And then AI is working with AIs. That would be kind of,
yeah, that would be crazy.
That's like 20 or thing.
Yeah, basically an AI is working on something and it's recognized that it needs this type of data, and so it puts a bounty out for that type of data automatically, and the humans don't even know why, because the AI is building its own algorithm for whatever problem it's solving.
Yeah, this is how the world gets taken over for sure by computers.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talk about AI recently. Vitalik Buterin went to Silicon Valley, I think 2 weeks ago, to check out like the advancements in AI, and there was this good interview on Bankless where he always thought that the singularity was going to happen in like 2050 or 2060 or something, and all these lead AI people are like, no, this is going to happen in the next decade. Like the advancements are so crazy right now that it's going to be like 10 years, like before 2030.
Wow,
which is scary.
That'd be wild. What's the singularity? Like
when AI, I think technically it's when AI surpasses like human cognition or something. But all of the AI leaders out there, at least according to Vitalik in his conversations, he said they're very optimistic that it's not like the doomsday scenario where, like that Elon always talks about. They seem pretty optimistic about how it's going to be rolled out and how it's going to happen, but who knows?
I'm glad that they're optimistic, that they're like,
yeah.
Vitalik, if they were pessimistic.
Vitalik was like, he was like, my gut is to just be very cognizant and what's the word I'm looking for? Not just believing it.
Aware.
Skeptical.
Skeptical. Yep. Yeah.
Anyway.
Maybe trust, but definitely verify.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you come across so one of the things I came across was how, and I think it was Bruce that was also mentioning this in one of the many interviews, but it was with MasterCard. The example was about MasterCard and how MasterCard currently sells their data, and they sell it to a select few people. And hypothetically, let's say that data is worth $1 billion. But what if they actually put it on Ocean? Well, in this particular scenario, then all of a sudden, the infinite number of different contexts that this data could be used for is, again, infinite. And there's just thousands of different ways. And so all of a sudden, the $1 billion that we were making before off of just these select few players could now be worth $10 billion or maybe even more, because they have millions and thousands of more different people actually using it in different ways that they didn't know. So the interesting point from there, I was thinking is like, wow, like MasterCard, all these other Web2 companies, I think are going to be, we talk about the eventual doomsday of them just kind of going away, being overtaken by Web3. It could be interesting how Ocean and how their prevalence of being these data hoarders could actually be their like saving grace into the future, because they have this infrastructure of all this historical data, but also the infrastructure in place to collect the data for the future as well.
Yeah. And for something like MasterCard, you might think, well, why would they want to expose all of this data and to sell it to people? And it's a financial incentive is what it sounds like. But what Ocean also allows you to do is they call it compute to data. So they could sell this data and allow AI researchers to run algorithms against it without exposing any of the raw data. So they're not even exposing the, personal identifiable information that they probably are doing with their other customers that they're selling the data for.
Selling this. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Which could be cool because then this got me thinking a little bit about what we talked about before at some point, like zero knowledge as well. I thought that was a kind of parallel to that. But the other piece was, they have this this privacy firewall, essentially, that you with the data can actually choose that, hey, like you can have 100% of the rights to this data and just be what they're literally probably doing right now. Or you just get to run things on top of it.
Yeah, it will be cool if Elon actually buys Twitter. He could, in theory, put the Twitter Firehose on Ocean, and AI researchers could then pay and get an NFT to have access to that Twitter Firehose, but with this firewall, so they're not actually exposing any data, and they can run algorithms and figure out really, really good search algorithms and feed algorithms that then could be applied to like Lens protocol stuff.
Yep. But even better. Oh yeah. So that would be cool because you're saying you could apply it to Lens, you could apply it to DSO, you could apply it to whatever. Like these things are just transform. Even better though, I was thinking he could put this on Ocean and put out a bounty for who can create the best bot tracker, bot killer. And all of a sudden, he is not focusing only on the people within the Twitter organization and SpaceX and so forth, but he's crowdsourced it everywhere.
Which is what he's all about. I love this idea. We need Elon to do this.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. What was a funny concept that came up with is I thought about, because you liked collecting baseball cards and stuff way back when, probably Pokemon too. I did a little bit of Pokemon. I don't really remember any of it or what the meaning of it was, but I thought it was going to be cool to have in the future. I bet there will be super niche, like data collectors of something that'll be analogous and parallel to the baseball collectors of today. I think that
because they do have data NFTs. So technically you can, which I don't fully understand, but technically you can have some data NFT in your wallet that you can collect and sell. Bruce had a comment too in one of the interviews where he said, maybe one day a data set will be publicly traded, and maybe one day a data set will be worth more than $1 billion. And I just thought that it's so hard to even imagine that world. I don't even know what that would look like, but that is a thing that might be possible now.
What do you think that would be? Do you think that would be like the Twitter Firehose for a day in time?
$1 billion is a lot. No, I mean, I think it would have to be
they could sell it for more than if you collected, let's say, a year's worth of Twitter data, all of their data.
The company's not worth that much.
Company, I mean, he's buying it for,
I guess it is like 50 billion or something right now.
I could say a year's worth of data is worth more than $1 billion there.
It's worth 38 billion.
A silly thing. Yeah.
But maybe something like the global, if everyone was wearing an Apple Watch and all of that data was in a singular data set, like the global health data for billions of people, that'd probably be worth a lot.
Yeah.
Or financial data.
That'd actually be pretty cool. In today's, especially, you wouldn't be able to do this on any of the Android devices just because they would collect your data regardless of you saying yes or no. But on the Apple, in theory, watches, it'd be cool if someone created an Apple Watch app where you can collect your data and then just it immediately integrates into Ocean Protocol. For that
like a bridge between HealthKit and Ocean. Yep. My guess is that there is some sort of app store restriction that does not allow that to happen. It's probably this app does not have enough useful features. I remember we've gotten rejected for that before.
Yes. Did you understand what the whole thing was with Ocean Protocol and the 51%?
So they
were saying like
reserve
51% is release for, but do they control that?
I vaguely
like,
understand this. I didn't dive into it, but from what I heard, they reserved 51% of the Ocean tokens, and the Ocean tokens are used in the system to buy and sell data sets. They reserve 51% that I think are for incentives. So it's kind of like Ethereum or in Bitcoin, like proof of work, proof of stake, where by doing this work, you're given an incentive, you're given a reward. So in this case, for the users that are curators or stakers or data consumers, data providers, data keepers, all these people are doing stuff. And I think this 51% reserve is what's rewarding them for doing it.
Gotcha. And so this is probably what they meant by the 51% being used for all that like yield farming.
Yeah, and the data farming.
They could use it as a yield, and then they bring it back for more bounties and kind of have this like closed cycle.
Yeah, I do not understand yield farming, or what they're doing is data farming. I don't get it. They said ecosystem of consuming data with all of the actors involved. For the notes that I wrote down is it's a long-term incentive, so you can like stake money, and that provides liquidity to data sets somehow. Stakers can put up their Ocean behind a data set. Data scientists can post bounties, and people will go find the data set for them. All that is under their data farming thing. But that's where my knowledge ends.
That's cool. Another concept that came up was how they kept on saying, and we said this already a few times, that data is being hoarded by a select few actors, by a select few companies right now, meaning that they control all of this. And what comes about from it is this anti-competitiveness, where there are so many different companies that control everything, and then all us other normal folk and smaller companies that literally can't, because we don't have access to this data. And it's funny how these capitalistic engines created these anti-competitive almost engines as well. But it's cool to see this capitalistic model be applied into actually being anti-competitive in a way, because it's more like holistic. So I thought that was cool, because sometimes capitalism, though, you know, I'm a big believer, it can have like its downfalls, and being anti-competitive is just a natural thing. Like, why would Facebook want to release all this data that they have when it can really help them make more money to then collect more data and so forth? And so in one way, yes, it's definitely bad, but in one way it's also good, because you need to make money somehow.
And it does good in the world.
Then this actually
because scientists can build better algorithms.
Yeah. And then this kind of gives that financial or that economic model for it to actually come about. So as much as Ocean Protocol is a protocol for sharing data, it's also that economic, marketplace too. So that helped me understand that piece of it for definitely. Sure.
And now that we've done a few of these project deep dive things, like we always try to find the business model. I'm curious if you found it. I did find it.
I found that they take 0.3% of each transaction, whatever that means.
So my guess,
you probably know
so
better.
If I go on and buy a data set, where you use the Ocean token to buy that data set. So I would assume that 0.3% of that transaction goes right to the protocol, and to that company that's managing all of this, Ocean Protocol. And 99.7% goes to everyone else that's orchestrating this transaction.
Speaking of MasterCard, they should take a page out of Ocean's playbook.
0.3 is nothing.
And Apple too. Yeah. 0.3, I feel like, seriously, if a company, like you say 3% is, not a lot. In the grand scheme of things, it does actually come out to be a lot, because if a company's profit margins are 5, 10, 20%, even at 20%, 3% is huge. That's 15% of their total profit margin. But 0.3%, like, wow, talk about the efficiency and scale of like, why wouldn't you use this? And so,
Apple just came out and said that
that
they're allowing NFTs to be bought and sold on the App Store again. Oh, but by the way, you have to take 30% cut of that and give it to Apple. Ocean is saying 0.3.
Which is just huge. Yeah. 30% is, I was so happy when I heard that. They gave me faith for sure. And a good chunk of humanity here.
I think it's a great business model. And I think we're starting to learn like what does it mean to have a protocol and what is the business model? In this case, it's very simple. It's just a cut of the transactions. A very small cut.
Yep. Well, and if they're looking for like $1 billion data
what's 0.3%
to be
of that?
Publicly traded, I think it's 30 million, right? Double check my math, but I think so. But if we're talking about this being done over and over and over and over again, you're like, you can still have a really big company that's taken just 0.3% stuff.
I think it's 3 million. Is it times 0.003? Yeah. 3 million.
3 million.
Still a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Because your example is just one data set. That's $1 billion worth of transactions.
Yep. That'll add up very quickly, especially when you have more than $1 billion of transactions done every single day. You're starting to get up there.
That's a lot. Yeah, so I'm not sure how
that's very cool.
Like we could get involved in Ocean other than maybe this data farming thing, but I never understood yield farming, so that scares me a little bit. But it seems like that's unless you're a data scientist, an AI researcher, or someone who has access to a lot of data that could be sold, at least right now, I don't really see many ways to being involved productively in this.
Yeah. We could just be data collectors.
Yeah.
For now,
whatever that means. But I will say this seems like kind of like a base layer technology that theoretically will be used by everybody. Like I am looking forward to the day that we could sell our personal data, whatever that is that we're creating every day.
If a couple of mid-sized companies if there's like 1,000 mid-sized companies that start using this, and we're talking companies making between like 100 million to like $1 billion in revenue, I think that'll start making a dent because it'll unlock and kind of create this co-creator.
Yeah, and I think they're really smart with the bounties. Like that's the only way to do this, right? Is by someone saying, I will pay for this data, someone go find this for me. And then the incentive is for you to go find this data for them because you'll get paid for it. So I think that was really smart to do.
Yep. Yeah. There'll be businesses just around that. There'll be businesses around cleaning up the data, making sense of it. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of cool things here. This, you know what? ID's, my to-be father-in-law and brother-in-law, very into sports. And they were just actually kind of making fun of Denver because I guess the Denver team got traded that one player and then Seattle Seahawks got
I don't know,
a lot of good benefits from it. I don't know anything about this, but I know that Denver got like what seemed at first like the advantage. Now it seems like the thing is flipped because the guy is like getting surgery or whatnot. It's going to be kind of a useless player. But I was thinking about like all this data that went into making this decision. It would be cool how this can transform the world of sports and stuff, because maybe if, these players start publicly sharing their data with like athletes or other things.
Yeah, you can build AI researchers could build some algorithms on top of NFL, player data. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So
sweet. That's all I got. Another good Project Deep Dive.
Project Deep Dive done.